Lily. Thank you all for beaming in for this important topic. I'm hoping that you get some ideas of how you can support your postpartum students, but also that you get some inspiration, some fresh energy in your own personal teaching and personal practice. I'm going to share my screen. We'll divide our time into a little bit of presentation, and then we'll get on our mats and do a little bit of the core exercises together, because I think if you're going to teach them and share them, so very important that you understand them firsthand in your own body as well. Some of these deep core muscles, because they're deeper under the surface, can be hard to access, and it's easy to just rely on superficial abdominal strength. So we're going to get on the mats and feel into awakening these muscles together. Let's see, present. That's what I want to do. All right. You're in the right place if you're wanting to learn about supporting your postpartum students and learning a little bit about your deep core today. I'm so glad you're here, whether you're beaming in live or catching the replay. Our plan today will talk about how to support postpartum yoga students. We will identify what is the difference between core and ab, very important. And we will talk a little bit about why a deep core awareness is important for everyone, whether you're postpartum or you've never had a baby or you had your babies 30 years ago. This deep core work is so revitalizing for all of us. This is my fourth webinar with beYogi. I love coming here and making new yoga friends and feeling part of this community. So thank you for having me. And there are 3 other webinar recordings that you could catch. So I wanted to point these out to you. You can find them on beYogi's website. The first webinar that I did with beYogi is all about supporting the postpartum student that comes to the non-postpartum yoga class. So if you want to dive deeper into this topic, check that out. I also did one on adapting yoga practices for pregnancy. So this is like not a prenatal training by any means, but like a little toolkit for yoga teachers, because we all have pregnant folks come into our classes so that you can support these folks. And then the most recent webinar that I did was with my dear friend, Mago Hesselink of Yoga Teacher Resource on thriving as a retreat leader. So that was a really fun one. And I've really turned my attention a lot to yoga retreats lately. So if that interests you, check that out as well. I'd love to stay in touch with you. So I know that a webinar can feel like we just kind of touch down here, we beam into the Zoom room, and then poof, it's over. But I've actually kept relationships with a lot of people that I've met over the years through these webinars. So if you'd like right now, even just grab your phone, and I put my IG there. So if you would like to friend me, follow me there. I'm really good with DMs. And I think the best way for me to get back to questions that will come up during this webinar is if you find me there and message me your questions. Please do. I'd love to support you and stay connected and see what you're thinking about this material. I also am sharing my website and my email here. And if you have any questions now or down the road about supporting pregnant or postpartum students, reach out. We'll talk about this at the end, but just in case we don't have time, I will be giving a free gift to everybody who catches the replay or catches the live, which is 100% off your first month in my live stream studio. I teach 3 live stream yoga classes. You can practice from anywhere in the world. Each week, Wednesday, I teach a rhythmic breath-based Vinyasa flow. Fridays in the morning, I teach a yoga HIIT class, interspersing high impact intervals, high intensity intervals with weighted flows. It's a great way to plug into some of this core work that we're talking about, because adding load will support your awakening of the core. And then Sunday, I teach a 90-minute deep dive and advanced yoga practice. So you can subscribe to 1, 2, or 3. You get your first month free as a gift for being here. And another great way for us to stay connected and in community. If you beam into my live stream, say hi, turn your camera on, or just say hi in the chat. I'd love to reconnect that way. All right. So my journey to find the deep core was really a postpartum journey. I had been a professional dancer all throughout my 20s. I have taught yoga since 2006, and I relied a lot on superficial abdominal strength, right? I thought I had a strong core because I had a six-pack ab, but I couldn't do certain poses. I couldn't do a handstand unless I was leaning into a wall. And I had a hard time controlling certain deeper ranges of movements. I would just kind of fall back into my back bends instead of controlling that eccentric core strength. And I often had this nagging pain in my SI joint or around my lower back or pelvis after I did a yoga practice. And it wasn't until after I gave birth, I have two children, they're 7 and 11 now. Um, one was 9 pounds, one was 10. So they were big boys. That really stretching out the core and carrying these heavy babies humbled me enough to slow down and shine that spotlight of attention inward to really feel into like the pelvic floor and the muscle of respiration, the thoracic diaphragm, and to feel deeper beneath the surface. Where are my transverse abs? This gave me a clear picture of bandha. It shifted my alignment. It changed breathing patterns, both on and off the mat. It helped with reducing pain in my pelvis and lower back, gave a longevity to my practice, supported deeper end ranges of movement, and things like press handstands became possible for me after giving birth to my first son. After practicing yoga for like 20 years and always just kicking up to a wall, it wasn't until I stretched out my whole core and did these reclaim your center exercises that I located the power and the presence, because it's not just brute strength, it's a neuromuscular consideration. It's a brain body map of bringing that mindfulness to the deep core. That's what got me into a press handstand postpartum. So I think that this journey of awakening the deep core is so important for all of us, whether you're an advanced practitioner wanting to learn press handstand or dropping back into full wheel with better control over that far end range of spinal extension, or whether you're a postpartum student, trying to find support for your pelvis and lower back. Let's talk first here about what is the difference between core and ab. So if you have any ideas, put them in the chat. I'd love to see your thoughts. I'm gonna keep going. If you're writing, don't stop writing. Don't be shy. So there's two exercises shown here on the left on the foam roller, on the right with the trainer holding down the feet. Yeah. Julia Bridges, core includes oblique. Okay. Yeah, there's many different iterations, theories of what is the core. So we will talk about that a little bit too. Core is all of the LPHC, Amanda Moore writes. Amelia Demplo, rectus abdominis versus deep inner core unit. I'm with you, Kaylin. Oh, that's Kyla Lynn, not Amelia. But yes, Amelia too, rectus abdominis versus deep inner core unit. Yes, core, Kyla. Core, chest down to knees. Chest down to knees. And what I'm getting from that, Kyla, is that you're considering maybe not just the front body. When you say chest, are you considering chest here or like the whole circumference, chest to bra line? Ooh, down to knees and back of knees. I'm curious. Jessica, legs, back, stomach. Monica, they are different. Yes, yes. Oh, both of mine are weak. No. We'll see. We'll do some exercises. I bet you'll find this joy of your own inner strength. Yeah. So, in these two exercises, here's what I will say to answer this question. I've loved reading your notes. Keep going. Keep the wheels and the gears turning. Okay, so the exercise on the foam roller is core, because there's a stability in the trunk. The arms and the legs are going away from center, and the foam roller is providing an uneven surface, challenging the core. So as the arms and legs go into deeper ranges away from your center, you're having to contract the core so that you don't arch your back, you don't back bend your ribs up off the roller, so you don't fall off the roller, right? That's core. Core is all about stability. Now, when he's holding down her feet and she's doing these crunches or bicycle twists, obliques, that is abs. Abs refer to the superficial strength of the rectus abdominis, the internal and external oblique. Abs refer to mobilizing the trunk, your sit-ups, your boat pose to low boat, this kind of movement, you're twisting and crunching, whereas core refers to, can you keep the trunk quiet, especially around the pelvis and lumbar spine, while you mess with that? And you can see as a yoga practitioner or a yoga teacher why that is so valuable in yoga, because yoga is a practice of going way away from center while staying deeply rooted to center, right? How can we sequence yoga classes that support a three-dimensional core? So this is like with one of your chat comments, right? Are you thinking of chest or chest around to the upper back? Is core like an apple core, or is core like what you see in the mirror when you try on a swimming suit? Yeah. So three-dimensional core and functional core strength, that would mean you're able to balance upside down on your hands, on your head. You're able to balance on one leg. That can have to do with an imbalance side to side, front to back. Functional core strength. How can we sequence our yoga classes to support our students in this way? So here are some ideas that I have, I will share. If you have more ideas, I want to see them in the chat. So my ideas around this are, number one, and this one gets overlooked, especially in the power yoga classes that can sometimes whip us up so much that we're moving very quickly and our breath becomes more huffy and puffy. Emphasize a connection with breath. And most important for the core, the health of the core, that full contraction of pelvic floor and movement of thoracic diaphragm together is your full exhale. So can you find, you got to exhale completely. That will allow you to take more prana, more energy, more breath in. So emphasize your exhale. Zoom in on, slow down, and clarify transition. In an effort to just get from position A to position B and so goal-oriented, warrior one, warrior three. What about three-legged dog to step through? What about rising into warrior one? How can we enliven the bandhas and the deeper inner core body to make these transitions more agile, to have greater capacity in the moments between? Look at repetition in a vinyasa flow class, chaturanga, plank, chaturanga, up dog, over and over and over. So how can you mix it up? Maybe add in a locust instead of an up dog to strengthen the multifidus and the paraspinals. The back is part of your core too. Or maybe hold plank and feel that as a core strengthening moment rather than chaturanga, up dog. Can you build in different movements rather than repeating the same thing every single vinyasa? Rethink the abs. If you teach, I mean, not everyone does, but if you teach an ab section in your class, rethink the traditional ab, like just lying down on your back and doing crunches and bicycles and boat pose. And I hope some of these exercises we'll do together give you some inspiration, like a fresh wave of energy of what you might want to teach in your next class if you teach an ab section. Consider adding load. That could be resistance bands or hand weights. If you want to come do that with me on Friday, I teach yoga hit, and that's one of, super empowering, especially as we age past age 30, we start losing our muscle mass, our bone density. We are losing it if we're not adding a little bit of load to our practice and a little bit of high impact exercise to what we do, not just the yoga poses on the mat. This is so important for perimenopausal folks, for menopausal folks. And then think of core to floor grounding, how you ground from your core through your shoulders and hands when you're in a plank, say, or an arm balance, in a down dog even, how you ground from your core through your hips and legs and into your feet in a standing pose. So it's this idea. In my class the other day, I asked, we did a whole class on the shoulders, and I said, where do you think of your shoulders starting? At the glenohumeral joint? At the scapula? Down through the lat? Where do you feel and source the power of your arms connecting into your body when you're moving in an asana practice? So this core to floor grounding can translate out through hands and feet even. That's a great way to find your core in a yoga practice, especially vinyasa yoga. How can we best support our postpartum students with inclusive core work? Well, we'll look at this a lot more on our mats. I'm going to save time to do these exercises together. So this is like a little preview. You can do the yoga with your eyes, or maybe just get curious. What are we going to do? What is the Mula Bandha wave? What is that? We'll do it together later. But first, a review. So postpartum contraindications. And if you want to go more into the realm of this, please check out that recording I showed at the beginning of the lecture. It's the postpartum practice, adapting for the postpartum practice webinar I did with beYogi earlier. There's a recording of it on their website. In that recording, I go into the 0 to 6 weeks, like right after you give birth. And then I go into what's called the 4th trimester, which is like 6 weeks up to 3 or 4 months postpartum. And then honestly, I'm on this track. I have 7 and 11-year-old children of postpartum for life, because I think a lot of the postpartum core work is actually some of the most potent core work for everyone. Like, you could teach it to your grandmother, but you could also teach it to an NFL like professional football player, and it would be equally relevant. So I'm on postpartum for life, or postpartum for everyone kind of track with beyond the 4th trimester. But these contraindications are really for that 4th trimester, like 6 weeks once you get clearance to move and exercise again after you've given birth. And that's when you'll see students come to your classes again. They get cleared for exercise, and it's like, woohoo, I'm just going to go back and do everything I used to. But caution, there's a few things we should be aware of as teachers. Let's look at these. So first, you want to take precaution with superficial abdominal strengthening. First, you want to understand how to access and strengthen the deeper layers of the core. All pregnant people will have what's called a diastasis recti, 100% normal, which is like, we go into this more in the postnatal lecture, but just to touch in on it, it's like a widening away from the linea alba of the rectus abdominis, the 6-pack muscles. It's deep. It's also measured in terms of width, like how many fingers width. And it should come back together, or functionally, when you're doing a sit-up, you should be able to bring it back together so that when you do a sit-up, you don't see a doming or a bulging. You don't have pelvic floor pain, lower back pain, urinary incontinence. These are signs that you're not ready for sit-ups or boat poses or things like that. And it's always important to start with the deepest layers of the core and then go out from there. Not that you can never do boat pose and crunches again, just that it's not the best place to start. So we'll do things like this instead, like dead bug exercise. You also want to avoid deep back bending postures. You can see back, think back to that picture with the big belly, the 10-pound baby that I showed earlier. The abdomen has stretched. The myofascia, the layer of fascia on the skin, the fascia and muscles, everything has stretched. And so we don't necessarily need more stretching of the abdomen. It is important to have a pliable abdomen. A lot of pregnant folks who've done back bends, their body has a little more natural capacity to give with their growing belly. So it's great to be pliable. So wonderful. But postpartum, we want to think more samana vayu, hugging in, like integrating in, rather than really stretching the low belly with deep, deep, deep back bends, like Urdhva, Dhanurasana, drop backs, things like that. We might want to slow down the pace of a flow for postpartum students, because think about it. When you're pregnant, your body changes over the course of 40 weeks. Postpartum, your body changes radically in the moment you give birth. So you are, in a sense, in a beginner's mindset postpartum, and you're getting to know a very radically different body. And how beautiful to be able to get to know your body and befriend your body and trust your body once again through a yoga practice. But if the poses are just whipping through really quickly, it's going to be hard to track where you are and feel steady for your postpartum students. You want to take caution with deep leveraged twists where you bind or you push. Sometimes we can destabilize around the center. So take a caution with those deeper bound leveraged twists for your postpartum students. And then just like with the abs work, you also want to be careful about putting them back into plank pose or chaturanga as well, until there's no longer that bulging, that kind of coning, that mohawking of diastasis recti, until there's no urinary incontinence, until they've learned to awaken the core canister and feel that support. Yeah, that support is so vital emotionally, spiritually, energetically, not just physiologically. It's a nice feeling to come back to the center of oneself after growing another human. And then, of course, you might take caution with belly down poses. Usually, I find postpartum folks are totally fine lying belly down. The only reason I include this is if they're breastfeeding and they haven't breastfed in a while. Sometimes that can be tender if you're feeling engorged to lie down. So, same modifications you might have taught for the pregnant student, like spinal balance instead of locust, that kind of thing would apply for postpartum people who don't want to lie on their bellies. And then breathing, right? So after giving birth, a lot of people will have this loose, distended muscle, fascia, skin around the abdomen. And a lot of yoga teachers actually teach in a strong practice, a Vinyasa practice, belly breathing. And so if you're belly breathing and there's all this extra space in the abdomen, you're actually not supporting around the pelvis and the lower back the way you want to be. So the belly breathing is beautiful. It does definitely drop us into parasympathetic nervous system, but save it for restorative yoga. In a Vinyasa yoga, in particular for your postpartum students, 360 rib breathing, so much healthier to feel that breath into the circumference of the rib cage. And then just, of course, be willing to refer out to like a pelvic floor PT if there's ever anything like a pelvic organ prolapse or someone with a 3rd or 4th degree tear, vacuum, forceps assisted delivery. That's outside of your scope of practice. And you might want to have a good local pelvic floor PT that you refer students to if they mention those kind of problems. So let's look at your core now in biomechanical and in anatomical terms. We talked a little bit earlier about your core biomechanically supporting deeper range of movement. It's the stability. And then your abs mobilizing your trunk, whether you're twisting or doing sit-ups or crunches or something like that. We looked at these two exercises and decided the foam roller is core, the sit-ups abs. Anatomically speaking, your core is made up, the deep core canister I'm talking about here, and this is one theory of the core. We'll look at some other theories too, of 4 key areas in the body or muscles. The pelvic floor muscles, many more than just one. The muscle of respiration, your thoracic diaphragm. These move together with every breath. Your transverse abs, the deepest layer, that corset-like muscle. And then your multifidus, this deep, deep spinal stabilizer that allows spinal extension and rotation. In the Pilates tradition, the core is called the powerhouse and includes a few more muscles. In Asian martial art, it's referred to as your hara or your dantian, and it's got these 3 finger widths below your navel. This is like the storehouse of chi, of your vital energy. Chi is similar to, in the yoga tradition, prana. And most anatomists agree that your center is like around sacral bone 2 when you're standing upright and your weight is distributed that way. Here's these 4 muscles I just pointed out earlier: diaphragm, pelvic floor, transverse abs, like a corset, and multifidus. So this is like your inner core canister. Yeah. I love the image of the core canister like a soda pop can. And there is a pressure piece of the puzzle, just like you can crush a can and create different pressure in the abdomen. Belly breathing creates one kind of pressure. Pressing into a core press handstand, that creates another kind of compression. For compression exercises, like preparing for press handstands, there can be an imbalance. Like when you crush a can, maybe you crush one side of it. Sometimes bodybuilders who are always focusing on abs, those washboard abs, get a sense of drag in the ventral body and the front body, and it can affect the muscles of respiration, like pec minor and up through the shoulder area. So we can have little imbalances around the core canister. The other image I like to use is a shopping bag, because there's a bottom of a shopping bag and it's so important. This is your pelvic floor in the analogy of your core canister. And this supports your pelvic organs: uterus, ovaries, bladder, rectum, prostate. All these pelvic organs are supported by the bottom of the bag. So you want to have strength and pliability equally all around. Pelvic floor awareness is a term that I like to introduce so that we're not just squeezing the pelvic floor. I think so many magazines talk about Kegel, 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 but we also want to learn to relax. As you inhale, you can relax your pelvic floor. And then as you exhale, you can engage your pelvic floor. These illustrations show anatomically where the pelvic floor, which is the red dot, the blue is the Ashwini mudra, don't worry about that, is located anatomically speaking, and where we would be activating and where we would be relaxing with our inhalation breath. I think it's nice to work with imagery. Eric Franklin has a beautiful book called Dynamic Alignment Through Imagery. And there's this image of the pelvic floor as a geyser or a top, like a drum. I sometimes use the image of zipping, like zipping from tailbone to pubic bone and then lifting, or like an elevator, the doors close and the elevator goes up, 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 or like you're drinking a smoothie through a straw at your pelvic floor. These are great images to awaken. Sometimes we just need a different possibility, a different image to understand how to contract the pelvic floor. Sometimes students will hear you saying, contract your pelvic floor, and they squeeze their glutes. So just keep working with different metaphors and images because, you know, it's a part of the body you can't just show people how to, it's not something you can show. So you have to work with language, imagery, metaphor, and give lots of options so people can find the one that works well for them. You have fast and slow twitch pelvic floor muscles. The slow twitch are the ones that are really affected by the weight. You know, babies the size of a watermelon, you have the placenta, the amniotic fluid, all that stuff. If you've given vaginal birth, that can be quite a trauma on the pelvic floor. But even cesarean, you still have all that weight for all that time. So you want to strengthen your slow twitch. That would be like exhale, engage pelvic floor. But also fast twitch is responsible for urinary incontinence. So those postpartum folks who are scared of jumping on a trampoline because they're going to pee their pants, or laughing or sneezing and peeing their pants, they need the fast twitch pelvic floor muscle. So that would be like a blinking, blinking your mula bandha, that kind of thing. Transverse abs. This was the one that I found and changed everything, and it works really well with pelvic floor. So transverse abs are this corset-like muscle from, you know, wrapping around back to front. They're deep. They're underneath rectus abs, internal and external obliques. And if you were to pretend to cough and you feel how your belly kind of corsets in, that is activation of transverse abs. If you lie down on your back, we'll do this later, and bring your fingertips like 2 inches south of your ASIS, those prominent pelvic bones in the front that you can't miss. And then exhale and think of hugging front ribs, abs, and frontal pelvic points to the midline. You'll feel this little glimmer or kind of kick up into your fingertips, and that's your transverse abs. Now they go, you know, all the way up. It's not just below your ASIS, but that's a great place to palpate for them. There's your multifidus in the back, providing spinal extension and rotation and stability. And then here's your diaphragm. Your pelvic floor and your diaphragm move together. As you inhale, they go down. That's why I talked about relaxing your pelvic floor on the inhale. And on the exhale, they rebound up like little jellyfish in the sea. This is why the yogi tradition is exhale mula bandha, not inhale mula bandha, because it's already happening. Every time you exhale, your body, your biorhythm has a little mula bandha, and you're just catching that wave and lifting more. So always cue your mula bandha on the exhale. Super important. Rachaka is the Sanskrit word for exhale. So exhale, catch the wave, the biorhythm, and find your mula bandha. This is why in certain yoga poses we find mula bandha, jumping into a handstand, jumping to the top of your mat, cat tilt, rounding your spine, contracting your abs and tucking your tailbone under, tightening your pelvic floor. Makes sense to do that on the exhale phase. Now there's also some supporting muscles here in your core that I don't consider part of those four core canister muscles. Glute med, so important to stabilize pelvis and lumbar spine. It's like a fountain of youth as we age to keep our glute med strong, because it gives us alignment, shock absorption, the energy forces that translate down into our knees and ankles stay buoyed and stable and happy if this glute med is strong, and up through the low back as well. So I teach a lot of glute med in my Friday yoga HIIT class. And if I have senior citizens that I work with, private clients, I definitely am teaching them glute med too. It's so important for the health of your hips and low back. And for pregnant people who've been waddling or carrying a baby on one hip, glute med is going to be a great stabilizer. The adductor muscles, the inner leg muscles, I think there's 5 of them. They work really nicely together with pelvic floor. So if you've ever seen a little kid who is laughing so hard that they're about to pee their pants, normally what they do is with their legs, like eagle pose, Garudasana. They squeeze their adductors because that lifts the pelvic floor and then they can hold their bladder. So we'll do some adductor work together. Some people refer to psoas. It can be considered like a deep postural muscle and stabilizer. It's also one that moves the body too. So it has 2 roles, but some people refer to psoas as a core muscle. This is an image from my teacher, Tia's Little, that I love. To think about your psoas in the front from your lesser trochanter up into your spine and your paraspinals in the back as the 4 pillars of the temple of the Sushumna Nadi, your central energy channel, which is roughly correlated with your spine. I love this image, like sacred pillars, steadying your Sushumna. We want to not just stretch the psoas, but also strengthen and pacify, like in the windshield wiper legs, pacify psoas. And then I add this one in. This is my theory. I don't know, I haven't read it anywhere else, but my theory is for yoga, because we're not bipedal all the time, we're quadrupeds too. We're doing all 4s, tabletop, down dogs, inversions where we're bipedal but in our hands. Serratus is important. So if the Pilates people get to say that the glute med is a powerhouse core muscle, I'm going to raise my hand as a yoga person and say, well, we are bearing weight in our shoulders, so the serratus is a core muscle, because the serratus keeps you from winging scapula, like popping up off the back in a plank pose. That broadening, protracting, and upward elevation of your scapula is what gives you a handstand that you can actually hold for a reliable amount of time. So I think, in my mind, of the serratus as a core muscle. One last theory of the core is from Thomas Myers, who dissected in cadaver lab these interconnected fascial chains and found that from the tongue all the way through to the toes, there is what he's labeled as the deep front line. So when one of you in the chat said the core is from chest to knees, and I think I said like an apple core or like the front body. Well, if it was the apple core version, that really aligns with Thomas Myers' theory of the deep front line as part of the core body. For the sake of our exercises that we're going to be doing, we'll look at the core canister, but it's really helpful to broaden your horizons and think about all these different ways that core is considered in the somatic world. Next, we'll look at breath, and we'll touch on this just briefly, that every time you inhale, you can see in this little video, the 2 pink scoops, one pelvic floor, one thoracic diaphragm. Every time you inhale, they go down. This is why we breathe into the pelvic floor and soften and widen. And then as you exhale, lungs, the diaphragm, the muscle of respiration, goes up as the lungs empty, and so does the pelvic floor. So inhale, exhale, in all these movements, cat pose, pressing into a handstand, stepping through 3-legged dog forward, picking up a car seat. You brace the core, you exhale, find your mula bandha, and then pick it up. All the effort, a karate kick, a high kick in a ballet class, all of these. Exhale, find your hara, your dantian, that center of your body, which is enlivened by this pulsation of pelvic floor and thoracic diaphragm. Like if there's one thing you can remember, I know there's a lot of information flowing through. This is a really game-changing piece of information to retain. When you inhale, thoracic diaphragm and pelvic floor descend, and when you exhale, they rebound. This will change the way you cue breath and movement and consider your sequencing. It's been one piece that's opened up lots and lots of doors in my teaching. So I hope it does for you too. There's lots of different ways we breathe in yoga, whether it's restorative yoga or active yoga. If you're belly breathing, this is going to put a lot of pressure out in one direction, like in that first balloon, also down towards the pelvic floor, which is not healthy for postpartum students, really for any students, if you're doing an active style of yoga. So if you're doing restorative yoga, sure, practice your belly breath laying over a bolster, horizontal, meditating. But if you're doing a rigorous yoga, I would not recommend belly breathing. Breathe 360, distribute the load, expand those back ribs, not just the front rib. This is a great way to teach. In my prenatal teacher training, I teach 360 rib breathing. We put the yoga belt around the ribs and practice breathing this way. And then just real briefly, I want to touch on Uddiyana Bandha and Uddiyana Bandha Kriya, which are two very different things. So Uddiyana Bandha is an energetic quality that we find at the bottom of each exhale when we breathe all the way out. And you'll feel this more easily in certain yoga poses, like in bridge pose, like in down dog. You feel kind of a bindu of awareness, a focal point at the belly center, and you feel that sense of pelvic floor and thoracic diaphragm drawing up together. This upward, like a chimney flue energy going up through your middle. Yeah, that's Uddiyana Bandha, the meditative quality of Uddiyana Bandha. Then Uddiyana Bandha Kriya is this. Uddiyana Bandha Kriya is exhale. It can be done in many different positions. Exhaling all the breath out, holding the bottom of the exhale, suctioning the belly in and up. Holding, holding, holding. And then you release the chin first, and then you relax the belly and inhale. So this in the PT, physical therapy world, and even in the bodybuilding world, Arnold Schwarzenegger does this. It's called hypopressive. And hypopressive tone the deep core body, because when you hold your breath out and you vacuum the pelvic floor and the belly together up, your thoracic diaphragm and that rechaka, that breath retention, acts as a plunger on your pelvic floor. Like think of a toilet plunger. Yeah, because you're holding the breath out so powerfully, you're creating a vacuum seal. It's not a hardening of the muscles, it's a vacuum seal. It's a very suctiony feeling, the Uddiyana Bandha Kriya. This is often prescribed to postpartum people by pelvic floor PTs because it's so good at toning the pelvic floor. So Uddiyana Bandha Kriya, you might not have guessed it, is a wonderful exercise for your postpartum yoga students. Not your prenatal students, but your postpartum students. I'm going to just sort of go through these quickly because I really want to get us on our mats and moving. I think I talk about this in the postnatal or prenatal slides that I did earlier with beYogi, but there's a difference between lordosis, which is posterior tilted pelvis, knees locked out, ribs shearing open, and a lordosis, which is an anterior tilt in the pelvis. But both affect the relationship, the way the ribs and the pelvis nest. And sometimes in yoga poses, we don't always have to nest the pelvis and the ribs. We go deliberately away from that. In Urdhva Dhanurasana, they're not going to nest. You're opening the lid. Yeah, you have to. But when you're standing all day long, if your ribs are opened up this way from your pelvis, you're going to have compression in the low back, overstretched abdomen, and that's going to affect the tone of the pelvic floor and the deep core body. So that can be really an important one to find. And wearing a little baby on the front can actually exacerbate some of these problems. So your baby wearing, as soon as you can wear the baby on your back, is going to help your alignment. I think one thing I do want to say about alignment is often in the yoga world, we jump to adjusting and correcting people's alignment. And it's like, would you go to therapy and just like show up and try to present yourself as like samasthiti, like equally standing pose, perfectly balanced? No, you show up because it's therapy and you want to share and open to what is. And so I think it's so important for us as yoga teachers to use invitational language and invite students to observe and make peace with what they notice in their bodies first and foremost, and not just jump to correct things. Because sometimes people jump to correct things so quickly that they don't even know what is. Like the first thing they do when they get into yoga class is try to sit up totally perfectly. And they don't even notice what they've been carrying on their back or on one shoulder for 20 years of their life, right? So that's like a bypassing. Okay, let's get to the exercises because I want to move with you all. So I'm going to stop my screen share and we're gonna move together on the mat. so that we can understand in our bodies some of these ideas that I've shared with you all. Oh, I can't wait to read your questions. Remember to DM me, please do, because that way I can answer and we can stay connected if I'm not able to get to them today. So meet me on your mat. If you have a towel or blankets and blocks, grab those things, pull them close. Can you all hear me okay? Mariah, let me know if you can't. I've got this long strip of blanket spread out. You could use a towel underneath me, and I've got another blanket in front of me. Now, the first thing to notice is that when I lie down, I'm not lying down by doing a sit-up because sit-ups are contraindicated for your postpartum students. So instead, I'm lying down on my side and rolling to my back. Super important, getting out of bed to go get that baby in the middle of the night, also on your mat. Now I've got this blanket equidistant kind of around my midsection. I'll be using it to reinforce the corset-like action of my transverse abs. But we've been absorbing all that information. Let's just land here. Close your eyes, feet on the ground, and take a slow breath in. And as you exhale, see what wants to soften. And then with your eyes closed, big breath, 360 into your rib cage. And as you exhale, bring awareness to your pelvic floor, and from tailbone to pubic bone, like you're zipping up a winter jacket, and then draw in and up, 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 like an inner lava lamp. And then as you inhale, relax downward and release, soften, widen your pelvic floor. So do that again. Deep breath into your 360 ribs. Exhale, bring your awareness to pelvic floor, tone in and up, 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 like an elevator. Yeah, good. Now open your eyes, grab the material, towel, blanket, pull it across. We'll just do a few of these for the sake of time, but I want you to bring your right heel onto the blanket, something that can slide on there. And then you're not going to corset yourself, but you're just using the blanket like a splint to reinforce the corset action of your transverse abs. You can feel them. So inhale. Exhale, neutral spine, pelvic floor tone, hug in, pulling on the blanket as you slide your right heel out without disturbing your spine. Remember, it's core work. Inhale, come back in, let go a little on the tug. Exhale, pelvic floor tones, give a little tug. Let's try this on the other side. We would normally do like 10 on each side, but I just want to give you a little, like a sample, a little taste test of the different exercises. Exhale, pull, pelvic floor, activate, transverse abs, hug those front hip points, ribs, abdomen in without sucking in. Inhale, release. Exhale, pelvic floor, lift, hug in, knit in, corset in, slide out. Beautiful. And then we'll release that. Again, you could stay with that. If you've really found something there, do many, many, many more. I'm rolling to my side to sit up. Remember, we roll to the side. I'm just going to move this out from under myself. I'm going to roll back down and then bring your knees directly over your hips. This is your dead bug or your heel drop exercise. So hold your knees. Neutral spine. You want to be mindful that you're not arching your ribs, that you're in a neutral pelvis and a neutral spine. Inhale, as you exhale on the effort, which is drawing the heel lightly down, pelvic floor tones and corset in. Inhale, come back. Exhale, drop your right heel down. Inhale, lift it. Now notice if your knees are moving into your chest. That'll make it a whole lot easier, but don't do that. Inhale and exhale. So we're just do a couple. This is layer one. Student who's farther along and ready to progress, arms up. Exhale, heel drop, inhale. Exhale, same pattern though. You're really lifting pelvic floor and then corseting in with your heel drop. Inhale up. And even deeper along in their healing, opposite arm from leg. Yeah, give it a try. Or even straightening the leg as you reach away. Well, there's so many options here. So much one can play with. So I just want to give a few options. Yeah. And then grab one of your blocks and put it in between your thighs, middle width, and grab the other one and put it in between your hands, long width. You're going to feel as you squeeze in, and you'll feel these muscles around your shoulder blades that it helps you to enliven your core. So as you exhale, squeeze your hands into the block and draw your heels towards the blanket. Pause here, inhale without tucking your pelvis, and then exhale, squeeze again, and slide your legs out. Inhale in. Squeeze the block with your hands and thighs. Exhale. Neutral spine, lift it up. Inhale here. Exhale, heels down. You might feel how your ribs want to arch. Inhale here. Exhale, slide it out. Plug into the block with your hands. Inhale. Exhale. Now, if that's too much, you might not have your arms all the way down. If lowering the arms causes a rib thrust, there's some more shoulder flexion range to work on. So don't compensate with your ribs if you can't get your arms all the way down. Just lift them a little, no biggie. Now, a lot of these dead bugs are just taught in this, like we're in this grid, this plane of movement. So I want to get us out of the grid and move to the side a little bit. Make sure you have some space to your side. Put a block against your left thigh. Press your right hand into it. Left arm, right leg up. Inhale. Exhale, go lateral without rolling off your hip. Inhale. You want to stay stable in your trunk, in your pelvis. Exhale. Good. Let's try the other side. I would do like 8 more, but we only have an hour together. So it's like a little taste test. Exhale. You want stability in the tissue in all these different ranges. You could even circle. You could have them write their name on the ceiling. You know, you can get creative with it, but you want to get off the grid that you just have to do these exercises in this kind of plane. Okay, grab the block, squeeze it between your inner thighs, reach your hands towards your feet. We're finding the adductors, right? Squeeze in. And now roll up, bridge pose. Squeeze into the block. Feel how your adductors support that activation of pelvic floor. Feel your rib bones lengthening up, 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 away from your hips. And as you exhale, feel your tailbone lengthen towards your toes. And we'll roll back down, keep squeezing into that block. Hold one block over your head, roll to your left side. Squeeze the block between your hands, stack your knees in front of your hips. Don't let this back hip slide back. So this is getting into glute med, complementary core. Exhale, lift your top knee. Inhale, lower it. Squeeze the block. Exhale, lift your top knee. And inhale, lower it. And keep that going. We'll just do like 5 here. Normally I would maybe want to do 10 or 15, but one more without letting your top hip slide back. You can even palpate to feel. Now half range of motion for 5. Don't let your waist sink into the ground. Lift it. 4, 3. Squeeze the block with your hands. 1, hold here, 1 breath. Head, heart, hips in line. So you're not rounding. Let go of the block, lower your knee. Press into your hands to come up and find a little side bend. This thoracic mobility, left arm overhead, or you could hold your head. Thoracic mobility is so important for the function of our core, also for our nervous system. And then a little twist. So take your hands both to the outside of your left leg and find Vajrasana 1, spiraling around to the left as you broaden your collarbones. And we're gonna lie back down on our left side, slide your left arm out, reach your right leg out into a little twist. You can work with a bent knee. You can straighten one or both of your knees. You can even catch the foot or hold the knee with your left hand. Take another couple of breaths here. And when you're ready, come on back onto your back body. Let's do those exercises on the other side. So we're finding glute med with this clamshell, stabilizing pelvis and lower back after 9 or 10 months of waddling. Exhale, lift your left knee, squeeze the block for 4, 3, without letting the top hip slip back. 2, you can even palpate back there, see how it's going. 1, hold here, flutter up half range for 5. This would really be more like 10. And as you lift your top knee, you can push your bottom leg into the ground, like you're burrowing it into the mat. Hold here, 1 more breath. Head, heart, and hips in line, long through your upper spine and ribs. And then lower your knee, use your hands to push and sit up like a mermaid on your right hip. Left hand, right knee, right arm over. Maybe hold your head. Finding that thoracic mobility, so important. And then turn into Bharadvajasana, hands to the outside of your right thigh, collarbones broad, rotate right. We're gonna slide back down onto the right arm and then find your way into your twist. You can work with both knees bent, right hand can reach to left knee, or you can straighten the leg. So many yummy variations. If you have one you love, maybe a bolster or a block under your leg, go for it. One more breath. And then when you feel ready, bend your knees. Remember, we get up from our side rather than like a big old sit up. So we're going to use our hands to get up. And then we're going to lie down on our belly. Like I mentioned earlier, some folks who've been breastfeeding and haven't in a while might feel engorged. If lying down isn't comfortable, they can participate in this part with spinal balance. Yeah, that's a nice way. We're getting into multifidus now to strengthen those paraspinals. So lie down if that's comfortable. Glide your fingertips forward and then pinkies down, thumbs up. And as you inhale, right arm, head, chest, left leg, swimming through a vat of honey. And to exhale them down. Inhale, left arm, right leg, head and chest. And exhale them down. And we'll just take a little swim here. Lifting the leg strengthens the lower back. Lifting the arm, you're going to feel more through the middle and upper. One more, each side. And then from here, nice. Go ahead and broaden your hands, root into your fingertips, and lift up off your head and chest and your upper ribs. And then see if you can bend let's just bend one knee at a time, actually. Bend your left knee. And then keeping your left hip on the ground, it's going to give you good information. If you twist off, you'll feel, since there's a mat underneath you, can you extend your hip, lift your thigh up without rolling your hip up? So keep your pelvic point down as you extend your hip. And then press into your right hand and straighten your left leg slowly, and then lower it. Let's do the other side. Bend your right knee. Feel your right front hip point to the ground. Push into left hand, extend the hip, and then slowly straighten it. And then lower. One more time, bend your left, extend, straighten, pressing into the opposite hand, cross lateral, and lower. And bend your right, extend, press into your opposite hand, slowly lengthen and lower. Gorgeous. Let's take child's pose. So press back, big toes touch. If anyone's knees are not happy here, just put a bolster or a pillow rolled up underneath your thighs on top of your lower legs. Put your right hand in by your right knee. Reach your left hand across on the diagonal. And then switch. Left hand outside your left knee. Reach your right hand across on the diagonal. And we'll just do one more each side, going across your midline, getting a big stretch through your lat and your lungs. Come on back up, sit up. Okay, lie down on your belly. I'm gonna take off the big sweater so you can see this next one a little bit better. Super helpful for your advanced practitioners, not just your pregnant folks, to find the action of the core in a handstand. Helps them balance belly to wall handstand, or holding handstands away from the wall. So arms overhead, pinkies down, thumbs up. As you exhale, squeeze the legs together, and can you lift your abdomen? You might just feel a sense of lifting it, or you might actually be able to lift it off the ground. You're pressing into the front ribs and the top of your thighs and knees, scooping your tailbone and lifting your abdomen like a hollow body. And then as you inhale, do the opposite, which is locust pose. Yeah, lift your arms. You can goalpost them if that's too much. And then lower and hollow body. Squeeze legs, scoop out, and then inhale and locust. Let's just do one more hollow body. And then locust. And then set it all back down. Come on up and lower down onto your forearms. Bring your palms together in prayer, elbows shoulders width. Push the floor away, broaden your scapula. Squeeze your scapula together. You could do like 10 of these. We'll just do a couple. This is awakening serratus, which we saw in the lecture when your quadruped is so important for your core. Serratus and core have a really unique relationship. Okay, sit down on your tucked toes, toe stretch. Reach your arms up. Exhale, right arm on top, big hug or eagle. And then arch and round a couple of times. When you're postpartum and you're holding a baby that's getting bigger and bigger each day, so important to do Gomukhasana arms, Garudasana arms, lots of wrist, elbow, shoulder love. Reach your arms up, left on top of right, big hug or eagle it up, and then let's go a couple times. Then let all of that go. Come back one last time to all fours, forearms down. Interlace or bring your hands to prayer, push like you did earlier, and then lift your knees. So you could keep your knees down and go back to those scapular push-ups, or really get a sense of pushing the ground away from you. Let your head hang. We might stay here up to a minute, but there's one last exercise I want to share with you. And this is like a little sampling of all the good postpartum core work you could share with your students. And this last one is so good. Take another breath here because it kind of brings everything together. Like we've tuned all the instruments separately and now they play together like a symphony. So lower your knees, come on up, and when you're ready, stand, grab a block and squeeze into it with your inner leg. If you don't have a block, you could fold a pillow or roll up a towel. You're gonna squeeze it, feet hips width. So you feel your adductors, you tone your pelvic floor and you course it in. Now, inhale, Utkatasana. Relax your pelvic floor. Exhale, pelvic floor tones in and up. Hug in, course it in, and find your adductors. Inhale, sit back like you're sitting into a chair in a kindergarten class. Go back with your bum. And then exhale, squeeze and stand. Let's just do 4 more. Grand finale. Feel your inner body bright. That core body, that deep core canister. Such an empowering feeling. Last 2. It's like a really nice little movement break for you today. Last 1. And then just move the block, close your eyes, reach your arms up, palms to prayer overhead. Gather your hands into your heart and pause and just feel what you notice in your body, in your mind, in your heart. And then to finish, you can open your eyes. And if there's one word that you want to drop into the chat, how are you feeling? I'd love to know. One single word after moving through those core exercises. Let me know. While you're writing your word, I want to say another thank you for being here. Amitria, oh my goodness, sending you a big virtual hug. Oh, nourishing, inspired, alive, engaged, grateful, fabulous, connected. Ah, me too. I just love the way that work makes me feel. Yeah. I'm going to pop my Instagram in there if you want to connect there. beYogi will send out the recording. I've got more for you. They'll send out the offer for the free month. Love and grateful. Aw, y'all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily, for that amazing presentation. Like Lily said, we will be sending out the recording tomorrow. And any questions you may have, just send them our way and we'll answer them. And I hope everybody here had a great experience and has a great afternoon.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thank
Mariah.
you.